Revealed. The heartwarming moment when a millionaire discovered the touching truth on his screen. The celebratory mood of the annual charity gala was palpable in the air as David Stokes, the self-made millionaire from the heart of the Midwest, stepped into the glittering hall. Dressed to the nines, his tailored suit gleamed in the soft lights, a reflection of his hard-earned success. But inside, David felt a growing emptiness, a distance from the humble beginnings in his father's grocery store. Little did he know, that emptiness was about to turn his world upside down. As the night unfolded, laughter and clinking glasses formed a symphony of extravagance. Donors mingled, flashing smiles, eager to showcase their generosity. But David was distracted, his mind drifting away from the friendships and faces he once knew. He used to admire every member of the community who walked into the store. Yet here he was, feeling like a stranger in his own town. Outside, the world turned, blissfully unaware of the struggles faced by folks like his neighbor Nora, a single mother laboring tirelessly, caught in the whirlwind of survival while he focused on glamour. Suddenly, a jarring chime sliced through the chatter. David glanced at his phone, and there it was, a heartfelt email from his father's old veteran friend, Bob. Curious, he opened it. A simple video was attached, flickering to life with the familiar backdrop of the town library. There on the screen were Nora's children, filling the space with laughter and curiosity. They were learning about kindness, helping each other with wide smiles brightening their faces as they shared stories. Tears pricked at the corners of David's eyes as he watched them, realizing how that library had mirrored his childhood, a place of hope and togetherness. The warmth he felt morphed into a tightness in his chest. What had he been doing? The irony wrapped around him like a heavy cloak. In the pursuit of wealth, he had lost sight of the relationships forged in his youth. "Hey David, are you okay?" It was his brother, Tom, emerging from shadows, eyes alight with frustration. "You're so caught up in this fantasy of success that you can't even see who's suffering around you. The people struggle every day, and you're parading like a king." The words hit like a thunderclap. Suddenly, the glitzy ambience faded. How distant had he become from the values that molded him? Tensions simmered as David grappled with Tom's truth. Success was painted in dollars, but it should be measured in lives touched and souls uplifted. In that moment, confusion surged within him. The world saw him as a beacon of wealth, yet he felt like an imposter wearing a mask. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As he returned to the video, David's heart raced. Nora's efforts for her children sparked a flame of determination within him. Here was inspiration. Here was the real purpose. The gala now felt like a suffocating cage. He needed to escape, to breathe, to think. The evening's splendor faded to background noise as he slipped away, searching for clarity amid the chaos. Alone in a quiet corner, he faced the haunting truth buried under layers of wealth. True success lies not in riches, but in love, community, and connections. The echoes of laughter blended with a sense of urgency, compelling him toward a bold decision. Would he continue this extravagant lifestyle, or would he step forward, ready to announce something that could change everything? With anticipation swelling in the air, David stood, trembling yet resolute. Could he really bridge the chasm between his father's values and the life he'd created? As he prepared to speak, the crowd hushed, curiosity etched on every face. All that remained was the crucial moment hanging in the balance, a test of the heart. Would he risk it all for something greater than himself? The answer pulsed, waiting to bring transformation in the midst of chaos. David took a deep breath, his heart pounding like a drum against the stillness of the hall. Faces blurred around him as his focus narrowed, fueled by the raw emotion bubbling to the surface. He had spent too long in the shadows of his own success, watching life unfold without feeling its pulse. Tonight would be different. He opened his mouth to speak, the weight of his thoughts heavy on his tongue. Everyone, he started, his voice wavering. He could see eyes sharpening, eager yet expectant. I know we're all here tonight to celebrate our achievements, to support one another. But something's been weighing on my heart. A murmur swept through the crowd. His brother was watching, a flicker of both hope and skepticism in his eyes. David pressed on, the words pouring out with increasing fervor. I've realized that success isn't just about what we've earned. It's about who we uplift along the way. I've been so caught up in the numbers and accolades that I've neglected the very community that shaped me. He glanced over at the table where Nora sat, her smile illuminating at his words. The moment locked into place, like a clear snapshot. He could almost hear the laughter from the video, a harmony blending with the reality in front of him. I want to do better, he continued, reaching for sincerity to weave into his words. I'm pledging half of my earnings from this year to local charities, homes for families like Nora's, scholarships for our children, and resources for everyone who needs a hand up. We can be more than just names on a donor list. We can be a family. Gasps mingled with whispers of uncertainty rippling through the audience. Some looked shocked, others were nodding slowly, processing the shift. The gala hall felt suddenly smaller, binding them closer, as warmth spread in the corners of David's heart. Could he really be a catalyst for change? But then a knot of doubt twisted within him. Was he being naive? Would his pledge really make a difference? Or was he just trying to assuage his own guilt? The murmurs surrounding him ebbed and flowed like a gentle tide. His own emotions reflected back at him. Tom stepped forward, his confrontation now softened by a shared vulnerability. That's a bold move, David. Honestly, I admire this. But David held his brother's gaze, desperate for the reassurance he wanted to feel. Tom paused, his face revealing conflict, the same struggle David faced. You won't fix everything with money alone. It has to come from the heart. You have to be in it. I will be, David assured him, his voice stronger now. I promise to be present, to engage not just with my wallet, but with my hands and heart. With every word, he saw eyes lighting up around the room. People were leaning in, curious and hopeful. There was a shift, an undeniable buzz of renewal sparked by David's conviction. This was just the start, and his heart raced at the prospect of what was to come. Let us make this a community effort, he said, passion igniting within him. I want to hold workshops, to connect those in need with resources, to celebrate our stories together. Who's with me? The applause began slow but soon erupted among the crowd, a powerful affirmation. He could see smiles breaking across the faces of those who had been waiting for someone to say it. To bridge the gap that wealth had created. David felt warmth rushing through him, a sensation he hadn't known in years, like coming home. As the applause echoed around him, he caught Nora's eye once more. A mix of gratitude and surprise shimmered in her expression, filling him with purpose. But just as quickly, he felt the weight of the moment settle back on his chest. This was just the beginning, and the road ahead seemed both daunting and exhilarating. With hearts still thrumming in celebration, they had crossed a threshold. Yet, David sensed lingering questions. Would the community truly rally as he hoped? What challenges lay ahead? More importantly, would he be able to fulfill his promises? The winds of change were stirring, and David stood ready to embrace the storm. But the deep roots of doubt held tight. As excitement crackled through the air, he looked out at the faces around him and wondered if he was truly ready to embark on this new journey. What awaited him on this path of transformation? He was about to find out. The evening surged with an electric charge, the applause still echoing in David's ears as he stepped away from the stage. He could feel the weight of both excitement and apprehension intertwined. The crowd began to disperse, but love and connection hung thick in the air, wrapping around him like a warm blanket. David! Nora called, weaving through the crowd. The sparkle in her eyes was infectious, and he couldn't help but smile as she reached him, her hair sweeping like a wave around her shoulders. Your words. They were beautiful, she said almost reverentially. I really believe you can make a difference. Her support kindled something inside him. Yet the knot of doubt still lingered. I hope so, Nora. But it won't be easy. I'm not sure how to even start. Start small, she replied, her expression earnest. Look for partnerships. Connect with those who know the community well. You don't have to do it all alone. He thought about that. Maybe the vision he had wasn't meant to unfold overnight. Maybe it was a journey, a slow progression, building a foundation thick enough to last. "Thank you," he said, sincerity weaving through the words. "You've always known how to ground me." As they spoke, the crowd began to swirl around them. Old friends catching up, others exchanging business cards, laughter spilling like music. David's brother, Tom, approached, his brow furrowed with deep consideration. "Hey, I wanted to talk," he said. "Can we step outside for a second?" David's heart sank slightly. He nodded and followed, the frosty air of the night greeting them as they stepped onto the balcony. The city lights glittered below like stars lined up for a dance. "You really think you can pull this off?" Tom's voice was serious, a mixture of brotherly concern and curiosity. "I believe it can work, Tom. The community, they need us to create a bridge. We can't just keep to ourselves," David replied, his voice steady. Tom rubbed the back of his neck, deep in thought. "Look, I'm all for helping people. I want to make sure you're not setting yourself up for disappointment. People will question your motives." David breathed out slowly, contemplating Tom's tone. He understood the skepticism. "I know, and I'm ready for that. I have to be honest about my intentions. It's not just about the money, it's about real engagement." Tom sighed, his eyes softening. "I admire your courage. Just remember, once you put this out there, there's no turning back." "I know," David said, a tinge of resolve bubbling in his chest. "I'm ready for whatever comes next." Returning to the gala inside, he felt an unfamiliar warmth settle in his heart. Suddenly, he spotted a group gathering around a poster on the wall, a call for volunteers to start community workshops. The ink felt like an invitation to him. Looking between the poster and the team discussion unfolding, an idea sparked. "Hey," he called, walking over, "what if I could help fund your efforts here?" The small group turned, intrigue dancing in their eyes. There was a spark in the air, similar to the one he had experienced on stage. If his belief sparked something in this moment, then perhaps the doubts wouldn't hold him back. Each conversation that flowed ignited a flicker of hope. Names were exchanged, ideas began to build, and excitement grew like wildfire entwined with the laughter and chatter. David's hands felt lighter, as if shedding layers of uncertainty. This was a beginning, not just for him, but for everyone around him. "What if we can make this an annual event?" someone suggested excitedly, and the room hummed with agreement. David smiled, heart swelling. This wasn't just his journey anymore, it was theirs. But deep inside, he still wrestled with the question of persistence and authenticity. Would he stay true to his vision when the path became messy and challenging? As the conversation deepened, David felt the pulse of something greater stirring, and he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the first step of a much larger adventure. What would happen when the challenges came knocking? Would he be able to stand firm, or would he waver, caught in the rough waters of reality? He could feel the winds shifting again, and he braced himself for whatever lay ahead. The next morning, David awoke to the soft sunlight filtering through his curtains. It felt like a fresh start, as if the universe was nudging him forward. He rolled over and grabbed his phone, still buzzing with notifications from the previous night. Messages from new connections popped up, filled with excitement about the potential workshops. His heart raced at the thought of possibility. With every intention of diving into planning, he headed to his favorite coffee shop, its warm, inviting ambience just what he needed. The barista, with her bright smile and friendly chatter, filled his cup to the brim with steaming coffee. A whirl of energy buzzed around him as he settled into a corner nook, laptop open, ready to map out his ideas. Yet as he began to type, doubt crept back in. What if he failed? What if the community turned their backs when they realized he was just a guy with good intentions and not a savior? Shaking off the negativity, he reminded himself. He was in this for the right reasons. He had to start somewhere. He took a deep breath and began sketching out a plan. He'd reach out to local leaders, gather feedback, and form a committee of passionate people. Each idea flowed from his fingertips like a symphony, his vision taking shape before his eyes. Just as he began to feel a sense of accomplishment, Nora's face flashed in his mind. She had believed in him, and that mattered more than he realized. He decided to call her. "Hey Nora, can we meet? I'd love to brainstorm together," he said when she picked up. "Absolutely. How about this afternoon? I've got some ideas brewing too, she replied, her enthusiasm contagious. As the day wore on, anticipation swelled within him. The meeting felt integral to his journey, a pivotal moment. He spent the hours leading to it dreaming about what the impact could be. He imagined children learning, neighbors connecting, stories shared across coffee tables. It felt big, bold, and risky, everything he craved. When they met in the community center, he found Nora waiting, pens poised and notebooks open. Their synergy was instant. I was thinking we should start with some workshops focused on skill sharing. People love sharing what they know. It builds bonds. She proposed, her eyes sparkling with passion. That is brilliant, he exclaimed, excitement bubbling up. They bounced ideas off one another, guiding concepts into existence. Yet as their conversation deepened, they also confronted the reality of potential pushback. We need to be prepared for criticism, David said, his brow furrowing. Some will question our intentions. Nora nodded solemnly. But that's where our sincerity will shine through. As long as we communicate openly, we can build trust, she emphasized, her voice steady. Throughout their discussion, David felt a layer of his anxiety peel away. Instead of feeling like he had to shoulder everything alone, he realized that true engagement meant being part of a greater collective. After wrapping up their meeting, Nora looked at him thoughtfully. You know, it's not just about the workshops. It's about people knowing they have support, that they're not alone, she said gently. I understand, he responded, feeling a wave of gratitude. I need to remind myself that building relationships takes time. It can't all happen at once. As they left the center, a sense of clarity washed over him. He felt lighter, more purposeful. They walked out into the bustling streets, the afternoon sun casting a golden glow. But just as he felt a surge of optimism, a text buzzed in his pocket. It was from Tom. We need to talk. It's important. Concern twisted in David's gut as he read those words. What could be so urgent? He glanced at Nora, apprehension creeping back. Would this news change everything they had just built? That question lingered in his mind as he stepped forward into the unknown. The weight of his brother's message pressing down like a storm cloud on a clear day. What awaited him when he opened that door? Would he find his resolve tested, or the answers he desperately sought? David's heart raced as he looked at Nora. Her face mirrored his unease, eyebrows drawn and lips pressed together, a silent agreement passing between them. They had just embarked on a hopeful venture, and now it felt like the ground was shifting beneath him. I need to take this, he muttered, stepping a few paces away. His hands trembled slightly as he tapped the screen to open Tom's message again. The breadth of his brother's message loomed large. He took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm brewing inside him. With each ring that followed, uncertainty gnawed at his resolve. Tom, hey, what's going on? David said, forcing a steadiness he didn't feel. David, I need to talk face to face. There's something serious we need to discuss. Tom's voice was clipped, a sense of urgency radiating through the phone. David's stomach twisted. Is it about Mom? Dad? Anxiety seeped through the words, and Nora shifted closer, concern etched on her face. No, it's about you, about your new project. The hesitation in Tom's voice was palpable. Can we meet? Sure. How about now? Okay. I'll be there in 15, Tom replied before hanging up. David turned back to Nora, who watched him intently. What's up? She asked, her voice a low murmur. The energy of their earlier meeting now tinged with something more serious. Tom wants to talk, he said, slumping into a nearby chair as unease filled the space between them. About what? I don't know. He seemed intense, more than usual. The words felt heavy on his tongue. Was this the challenge that would scar the budding connection he had with the community? His mind swirled with possibilities. Look, whatever it is, you'll handle it. You've got this, she urged, her confidence making his storm of doubt seem less daunting. David nodded, though the unease settled in deeper. What if Tom was right? What if his ideas were too ambitious? What if they all came crumbling down? Just as he was about to spiral into these thoughts, Nora gently placed a hand on his shoulder. Hey, remember why you started this? You can't let fear dictate your journey, she said, her voice steady. A swell of gratitude washed over him. How had she become such a guiding light in this tumultuous time? Just as he was about to express his appreciation, the door swung open. Tom strode in, a familiar look of determination etched across his features. David, Tom began, his eyes scanning the room, landing sharply on Nora, then back to his brother. We need to talk. David felt the atmosphere shift. It was like standing at the edge of a cliff, with the vast unknown stretching out below him. They pulled their chairs closer, the coffee shop around them fading into a blur. What is it? David asked, concern evident in his voice. Tom leaned in, tension radiating off him. There's been some chatter about your project. People are worried that you're overstepping, trying to play hero. David's heart sank. Worried? Why? Let us just say there are those in the community who think you might not have the experience to pull this off. Each word from Tom felt like a weight bearing down on his chest. He looked at Nora, her expression serious but resolute. Wait, this needs to be out in the open. If people are talking, it means they care. Let them watch. We'll show them what we can do, she interjected, her voice rising with conviction. David swallowed hard, torn between nervousness and determination. I can't let them down. I need to make this work. For all of us. Tom held his gaze, a flicker of something softer breaking through the urgency. Then let us dig deeper into this. We need a plan to earn their trust. The responsibility washed over David, tangled with hope. All those dreams of connection and community, could they see them? Did they want to? As the three engaged in discussion, something shifted in David. With each word, he felt the surge of purpose taking root. But there was still a nagging question lingering in his mind. Would it be enough to sway a community wary of change? With a sense of urgency pressing down upon them, David glanced out the window, catching a glimpse of the world outside. He knew the road ahead would be rocky, but for the first time, he felt stronger in facing whatever storm awaited. What lay ahead was uncertain, but he centered himself, reminding himself he was not alone. And as Tom laid out potential strategies, David couldn't shake off the feeling that what came next would be the defining moment. The real test of his ambitions and the bonds they were forging. Would they rise to the occasion or falter when it mattered most? The coffee shop buzzed with the low hum of conversation and clinking of cups, but for David, the noise faded as he focused on Tom's words. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of destiny shift in the air. His drive to prove himself surged like an electric current. Let us start with how you plan to pitch your project to the community, Tom suggested, leaning back in his chair, eyes fixed firmly on David. The intensity was almost palpable. David opened his mouth to respond, but the words tangled up in his throat. He could feel Nora's encouraging gaze nudging him on, and he steadied himself. He needed to articulate his vision clearly. I believe we need to highlight the benefits first, the change we can bring, not just the challenges. Tom nodded, but his expression remained cautious. That's good, but remember, people need to see you're capable. They don't want a wish list, they want a plan. Fine. A detailed plan then, David said, surprising even himself with the fervor in his voice. We can set up workshops, community meetings. I can share my ideas, let them see the numbers and the impact it could have on our lives. They LLC I care. Nora's gentle hand around his wrist inspired him further. Let us turn their doubts into motivation. We can demonstrate our commitment with tangible actions. Exactly. Tom agreed, his demeanor lightening momentarily. We can organize a kickoff event. Showcase everything you've been working on, maybe even get a few locals involved to help boost credibility. Great idea, David replied, the possibilities swirling in his mind. We can even get testimonies from volunteers who've already seen the impact of such work in their communities. As they tossed around ideas, the earlier tension shifted to a collective energy that ignited hope within the three of them. David felt the warmth of camaraderie wrapping around him like a blanket. This wasn't just about him anymore. They were in this together. Yet, as they firmed up their thoughts, a nagging sensation tugged at David's instincts. Doubts hissed softly in the back of his mind, warning that not everyone would embrace their ambitions. After all, they were pushing against a tide of resistance that had brewed in the shadows. Look, David said, reluctantly addressing the elephant in the room. What if we fail? If they don't accept us? But what if we succeed? Nora countered, her eyes brimming with a mix of challenge and encouragement. Failure's just part of growth. But overcoming skepticism might bring us closer to what we really want. David could feel the pulse of conviction replacing dread within him. A vision for the kickoff began to crystallize, room filled with curious faces, eager to listen and engage. But the question remained. Would they truly rally behind a cause or remain entrenched in their reluctance to change? Before he could dwell too deeply on that thought, Tom spoke up, enthusiasm spilling over. Let us set a date for the event. We'll get a location and start spreading the word. The energy in the coffee shop shifted again as the prospect of action loomed over them. Tangible now. I like the sound of that, David said, excitement bubbling up in his chest. But as they made plans, a new concern flickered in the back of his mind. Something dark and lurking. What if some voices in the community were set against them? What if those who were hesitant turned to opposition? The thought cast a cloud over their hopeful plans. David could feel the weight of expectation bearing down. Just as he opened his mouth to voice his concern, Nora leaned closer. David, no matter what, we face it together. We'll rise up, side by side, she said, her voice steady, as though reaffirming a promise already made. And just then, David realized this was more than a project or a plan. It felt like a fight for something larger. Their place within the community and the relationships anchored in trust. The clock ticked on, marking their minutes of preparation, but it struck David deep in his heart. In this moment he understood. Transformation didn't happen in silence. It roared. Loudly. With adrenaline running through him, he rose from his seat. Let us do it then. Let us make this change happen. As they finalized details, the coffee shop filled with their laughter, and the hum of conversation resumed, but David felt quieter inside. Shadows of uncertainty danced in the corners of his mind. What would become of them when they faced that inevitable challenge? Would the community welcome them with open arms? Or would they have to weather a storm of dissent that threatened to drown their dreams? Nora squeezed his hand, grounding him. With every heartbeat, he felt the urgency of what lay ahead. The moment to prove themselves approached, and David couldn't shake the feeling that real change was just on the horizon. But at what cost? The next few days felt like a whirlwind to David as he prepped for the event. His heart raced at the thoughts of the community gathering around him, listening to what he had to say. A rush of excitement collided with anxiety each day. He spent evenings drafting his speech, adjusting the details of his presentation, and brainstorming ways to engage the audience. Even as the sun dipped below the skyline, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, his mind swirled with worries. Would they really embrace this idea? Would the project resonate with them? Tom and Nora were his solid anchors, checking in daily and offering their support. Tom dove deep into logistics, securing a community center that could hold a crowd, while Nora, with her optimism, spread the word across her networks. It's going to be amazing, she said cheerfully during one of their late-night planning sessions. Just remember, Tom added, keep your focus on the benefits, but also be prepared for those who want to like change. David nodded, but the image of a few familiar faces in the community, those known for their skepticism, kept haunting him. He needed to flip that tide of doubt. Days flew by, and sooner than he anticipated, the kickoff event loomed just around the corner. Lately, he had taken to checking his phone more frequently, looking for RSVPs or messages of encouragement. He told himself he was ready, but doubt crept in like a shadow. Finally, the day arrived. David stood in front of the community center, feeling the hum of anticipation in the air. Butterflies fluttered wildly in his stomach as he saw chairs being set up, posters of his project displayed. This was a chance to reach out, to connect, to inspire action. The room filled, and David scanned the audience. Familiar faces appeared, friends, neighbors, some who had expressed their doubts to him. He felt both fear and excitement flare up within him. When the moment to speak finally came, David stepped onto the small stage. The bright lights felt like a spotlight, exposing the tight knots of anxiety in his chest. He took a deep breath, feeling Nora's steady presence behind him, and reminded himself of their shared promise. Thank you all for being here today, he began, his voice steadier than he expected. He launched into the vision he had painted so many times in his mind. He spoke of the positive change, the benefits, and how the community could improve their spaces together. As he shared anecdotes of individuals who thrived in similar initiatives, he could see their interest growing. Heads nodded in agreement, murmurs of acknowledgement floated through the room. A flicker of hope ignited within him. But then, just as he reached the climax of his speech, he noticed the familiar faces, the ones who'd been the loudest doubters, now scowling in the back. That shadow of doubt crept back, whispering fears into his ear. What if they opposed him? What if the crowd turned? He pushed those thoughts aside and forged ahead, sharing a heartfelt story that transformed his monitors into a platform of connection. The story, filled with struggles and triumphs, began to resonate. Murmurs transformed into applause. Change is hard, David concluded, looking around the room determinedly. But imagine what we can create together. I believe in this community, and I believe in all of you. As he stepped down from the stage, the applause thundered beyond his wildest dreams. But just as he caught his breath, he felt a tug. The skeptical crowd was now moving forward, one of the faces he recognized coming up behind him. David! A voice called out, dripping with something unexpected: curiosity, intrigue, maybe even challenge. And right there his heart raced again, but this time for a different reason. What was about to happen next could change everything. Would they bridge the gap of doubt? Or was this the moment where everything unraveled? He turned, facing what could be his biggest test yet. David turned slowly, expecting confrontation. The familiar face belonged to Mr. Jenkins, an older man known for his no-nonsense attitude. He crossed his arms, eyeing David with a mixture of skepticism and something deeper. The crowd had quieted, curiosity hanging thick in the air. David, Mr. Jenkins began, his voice steady but low. You really think this plan of yours can make a difference? The question hung heavy between them. David's heart pounded, the weight of all his preparations suddenly feeling fragile. He had rehearsed for enthusiastic support, not this precise challenge from someone who wielded influence over many in the room. I do, David replied, trying to keep his voice steady. I wouldn't be standing here if I didn't believe it could work. I've seen it happen in other communities. Mr. Jenkins wasn't convinced. He scoffed softly, running a hand over his chin as he looked around at the faces of those listening. You're asking for change. People don't always welcome it, especially if they don't see how it directly affects them. From the back, a voice piped up. What do you mean, Mr. Jenkins? This could benefit all of us. It was Karen, a local mother and small business owner. Her support sent a ripple through the crowd, reigniting David's hope. They don't care about benefits, Mr. Jenkins retorted, still focusing on David. People care about safety and stability. This project sounds nice on paper, but how do you plan to keep it going after the excitement fades? David's mind raced. He thought of all the discussions he had with Tom and Nora, the plans they made to ensure sustainability, their confidence in the community. By involving you all, he said passionately, the confidence gathering like a storm inside him. This isn't my project, it's ours. Your voices shape it. The goal is to create engagement that lasts, to build on this momentum together. Together? Mr. Jenkins challenged, eyebrows raised. What's that look like, then? David took a step closer, feeling the electricity in the room shift. It looks like forming task groups. It looks like you directing the conversations. Everyone here has a part to play. The more voices, the stronger we become. It means collaboration. Not just from me but from you, your neighbors, and your friends. I'm not so sure, Mr. Jenkins replied, his voice softer this time, almost like the refusal was slipping away. Let's think about our community as kids, David pressed, raising his arms to gesture toward where several young families stood at the back. If we don't come together, what future are we leaving for them? We need to set aside personal reservations. We need to face this head-on. The room hummed with energy, voices starting to murmur again, echoing support. David could feel it, the tide was turning. Just as he caught a breath, Mr. Jenkins turned, gazing across the engaged crowd of neighbors he had known for years. All right, I'll be involved. But don't think this will be a free ride. It requires commitment. A rush of relief filled David, but also uncertainty. This monumental shift could mean everything, but what would true commitment require from him and from others? It was a daunting challenge. one that could either fortify or fracture their connection. As David nodded, acceptance and determination pooling within him, he felt Nora's hand clasp his shoulder gently. There was gratitude in her smile, but a hint of worry lingered in her eyes too. The moment was changing, shifting expectations, and unfurling new possibilities. But doubt still murmured in the corners of his mind. Would they really unite as a community? Or was this only the beginning of a far more complicated journey? The clapping surged, a wave of encouragement pouring over him. Yet he sensed the real work was just starting. Could they truly harness this moment to forge something lasting? Or would the delicate threads of unity snap under pressure? His heart thrummed in anticipation as the next crucial dialogue began. What awaited him in the struggle for true collective change? David could almost hear the echoes of the community's heartbeat, and he wasn't sure if it was ready to embrace the rhythm of what was to come. The crowd buzzed with renewed energy, a ripple of anxiety and excitement intertwining as people began to register what had just happened. David stood at the forefront, winded yet empowered. Mr. Jenkins had agreed to join him, and that single commitment felt like a powerful crack in a wall that had held resistance for too long. Nora leaned in closer. "What now?" she whispered, her breath warm against his ear. David turned, scanning the faces around him. Karen stood with her arms crossed, her expression a mixture of hope and uncertainty. He caught a few nods here and there, hesitance palpable. "We talk about next steps," he replied, just above a whisper, but loud enough for the growing crowd to hear. With measured intensity, David stepped back to address everyone. "Okay, everyone. We've got Mr. Jenkins on board. Now let us discuss how we can mobilize this support. Who here has ideas for forming task groups?" The crowd remained a mix of excitement and skepticism, shadows of doubt hovering at the edges. A young man, Jason, raised his hand, uncertainty swirling in his eyes. "What sort of groups are we talking about?" David seized the moment. "Great question. We need a team for outreach, someone to connect with the broader community. Perhaps a fundraising group as well. We also need a team that can kickstart the actual project, the design, and implementation of our ideas, including a committee to tackle concerns that arise." The clamor of overlapping voices suddenly merged into one. "I'll help with outreach," Karen called out, raising her hand. The crowd began to fill in the gaps, ideas flaring like fireworks. Someone mentioned forming a communication group, another suggested a community event for brainstorming. It was as if the spark ignited something deeper, the gathering coalescing into a unified force. David felt the warmth of their energy brushing against him, heart pounding as a sense of belonging washed over him. The fear that had gripped him earlier now transformed into something stronger, a vibrant hope. Ideas bounced around like basketballs on a court, everyone desperate to get their voice in. But amid the excitement, David's thoughts drifted back to Mr. Jenkins. They shared a quick glance, the older man nodding approvingly. Yet David could sense the weight of expectation resting heavily on him. It wouldn't be long before the reality of commitment settled in, and he worried whether the enthusiasm would sustain. As the crowd began to organize themselves into different sections, David pulled Mr. Jenkins aside. "I appreciate your support today. It means a lot. But how do we keep this momentum? What does commitment mean for you?" Jenkins frowned thoughtfully, a glimmer of vulnerability breaking through his stern demeanor. "It means being in for the long haul, David. It means facing the hard truths down the line. People tend to disengage when things feel overwhelming. We need to prepare for setbacks." The weight of those words settled into David's chest. "I understand, but I believe we can navigate the challenges together if we truly unite. We can't shy away from hard conversations. Just remember, leading a community isn't about the applause. It's about the grit, the heart, and the relentless spirit to push through the tough times." Mr. Jenkins clapped David on the shoulder with a firm hand, a sign of trust being built between them. David smiled up at him, feeling an odd sense of kinship with this once remote figure. There was truth in Mr. Jenkins' words, but all he felt now was an incredible surge of will. The crowd was mobilizing. People were forming groups, raising voices to be heard, sharing their dreams for what could be. He couldn't help but let the joy bubble up inside. Yet, just then, A gruff voice from the back of the room cut through the harmony. What if it fails? Someone called out, skepticism licking at the edges of their momentum. The crowd stilled, and David's heart raced once more, knowing the real challenge now loomed ahead. As he looked into the expectant faces around him, he took a deep breath. Was he ready to confront their fears? His lips tightened, determination igniting in his chest. That's the question we need to tackle. What will we do when we face setbacks? We can't allow fear to control us. We need to keep moving, keep believing. The murmurs swelled again, but whispers hung in the air like thick fog. David could feel the eyes trained on him, each gaze filled with a mix of hope and doubt. Would they press on together? Or would the questions drown them? In that moment, the struggle for collective trust felt sharper than before. Would they all step up when the going got tough? Could this newfound momentum handle the weight of reality? He steadied himself, knowing that the pain of uncertainty was just beginning to reveal the strength of what was to come. David took a step back into the warmth of the crowd, drawing everyone close, ready to dive into the next conversation, but uncertain what vulnerabilities they'd uncover. Would the rising tide of commitment truly lift them all? The energy in the room was electric as David faced the crowd, a tapestry of faces reflecting hope, skepticism, and everything in between. The question hung in the air like a storm cloud. What if it fails? Failure is an option, David declared, his voice growing stronger, heart thumping like a drum. But it's not the end. It's a chance to learn. We can adapt, grow. We're in this together. What matters is how we respond when we stumble. He glanced at Nora and Tom, whose supportive nods bolstered his confidence. He took a breath and reached deeper within himself, recalling how far he had journeyed to stand there. Once, success to him was merely a bank balance. Now it was the collective spirit surrounding him. Let us not deny our fears. We'll face them head on. This isn't just a project for me. This is for all of us. You don't need to believe in me as a leader. Believe in each other. Let us create a safety net, places for shared voices, where we can meet to discuss struggles and solutions alike. A ripple of understanding began to shift through the crowd. People exchanged glances, some whispering amidst nods of encouragement. It was a small but powerful first step, recognition of commitment, not just toward the cause but toward one another. Let us build that net right now, David suggested with fervor. Let us form working groups. Who's interested in leading our first community meeting to gather input? Let us not just talk at each other. Let us genuinely listen. A few hands shot up, tentative at first, then more adventurously as the atmosphere lightened. Karen stood tall among them, her voice clear. I'd love to spearhead the outreach committee. We need to ensure everyone knows they're invited to contribute. I can help with that. Another voice chimed in, the crowd startling itself awake. Suddenly, more people discovered their willingness to join in. Inventive ideas rushing like a current around the room. David felt a wave of affirmation wash over him, spurring him on. Next, we need accountability. Who here will commit to sharing ideas weekly? Let us make this real. As names were called out and notes jotted down, David's heart soared. He looked for Mr. Jenkins, who remained in the corner, arms crossed but an eyebrow raised in guarded interest. David caught his eye and felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps they could turn hesitation into trust. All right, I want us to gather again next week, David declared decisively. We will keep each other on track. We will hold ourselves accountable not just to our goals, but to each other. We will not allow fear to divide us. David, I think you're onto something. Mr. Jenkins spoke up, slowly unfurling his arms. But I want to throw down a challenge. If we are serious, we need to draft a community agreement. A pact of sorts. You all must understand how to manage expectations, set boundaries, clarify roles. If we fail to connect on these points, doubt will always creep in. A murmur of surprise rippled through the crowd, but David felt the weight of Mr. Jenkins' words resonate with him. Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. That's an incredible idea. Respect and clear roles will steer us toward success. Let us commit to moving forward with transparency and engagement until we find a path that reflects our community. Emboldened by the shift, others joined in, eager to engage. Ideas flowed freely as they discussed logistics, dreams, and even fears. With every exchange, the chaotic energy transformed into a rhythmic beat of cooperation. Everyone was invested both in the project and each other. As their time together came to a close, applause filled the air again. Exhilaration pulsed through David's veins. They were not just ready to tackle their fears. They were embracing the very essence of community. Days passed as plans solidified. Enthusiasm propelled them forward. They held meetings, created flyers, even reached out to local businesses for support. The commitment was becoming a tangible entity, a shared flame igniting dreams. Yet amid their progress, David remained conscious of the journeys to come. He felt a storm brewing on the horizon. Doubts always clashed with hope. During one late evening brainstorming session, Nora pulled him aside. "You seem a little distracted," she noted, concern shadowing her features. "Everything okay?" David sighed, running a hand through his hair. "What if they abandon this? What if the excitement fades? I don't want to let anyone down." Nora's eyes softened, and she gently squeezed his arm. "You're not alone in this. Just keep showing up. With every step, you're building trust. You don't have to carry this weight on your own. Remember, we're all here for each other." Those words became his anchor. Days later, during the community's first official kickoff event, David stood before a bustling crowd in the center hall, hope gleaming in his eyes. He basked not just in the potential of change, but in the connections made leading up to this very moment. He glanced around, spotting familiar faces, neighbors, friends, and even those who had once doubted. The air was charged with anticipation, excitement fluttering like butterflies in David's chest. "Today marks the beginning of our journey together as a united community," he proclaimed, his voice ringing strong. "The path may be paved with challenges, but with hope and resilience, we can redefine what success looks like. We can build a place where everyone's voice matters." The room erupted in applause and cheers, smiles blooming everywhere. There were still fears to conquer, but something profound had shifted. They were never destined to be alone. That night, David returned home, filled with a resolution he had never truly felt before. As he looked up at the stars twinkling in the vast night sky, he recognized that true success isn't measured in dollar signs, but in strength shared, voices united, and a community forever transformed. Now was the time to step forward, not in fear, but in hope, a beacon of light for others to follow. And for every challenge ahead, they would rise together. This was not just the end of a story, but the beginning of so many more yet untold. So if you resonate with this story, you need to subscribe now to support the channel, and ensure you don't miss the next exclusive tales of inspiration. Leave a like now if this journey touched your heart, and help fuel the algorithm to share these stories with others. Comment below with your thoughts and feelings about the transformation you witnessed. Let us keep the conversation going. And for crying out loud, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. We're building a community that thrives on love and connection. And your support means everything. Don't wait not even one more second to share.